Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. This was an interesting little game. It was released in 1989, and literally it was released to coincide with the film release. And now let's put it this way: this Last Crusade was the third Indiana Jones movie, and well, when I was younger, I was playing Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom in the arcades. But The Last Crusade was a lot different. And known as the graphic adventure, this release, in the tradition of LucasArts games, had some goodies that came with it that helped you get through the game. And this was also innovative because it worked on a scoring system called the Indie Quotient, which meant, depending on what path you chose and all that, your score advanced in such a way. And I'll admit, I didn't get this game at first. I got it when I got a collection of Sierra's greatest hits. I mean, not Sierra's greatest hits, LucasArts' greatest hits. Oh, man. That's a flub there. LucasArts' greatest hits, and it was, in that collection was Loom, Zach McCracken, the Secret of Monkey Island, Maniac Mansion, and this title. Actually, my cousins had this game before I did. And it basically followed the plot of the movie. And it was, quote, one of those ones, it was, quote, hard to die in. Actually, I think the only way you could, quote, really die was in areas that were predetermined to have a death sequence. If you made a death when you made a mistake, or when you had a situation where you had to, you know, surprise them with something, or like you had a fist fight. And yes, fighting was actually an option in this game. You could try and use your wits, try and use your fists. I never really went the fists. I tried not to go the fists path because you would need something to restore your health after so many fights, or you start at a disadvantage. And this was a game that literally made you think things out. Every puzzle had a solution, and you could have alternate means to get through a situation. I mean, you start out returning to Barnett College, where Indiana works as a professor of archaeology. And of course, everybody needs their syllabi or something signed or things signed. To which, of course, Indiana Jones comes to his office, which is full of people who want to, have the courses signed. So you have to either sneak out or find a way to dismiss them. And of course, once you leave the office, one way or the other, you find out that your father has been abducted. Henry Jones has been abducted. You then must maneuver your way through certain things, checking out his home, finding what you may need there, or heading off to Venice, where the first clues to where the Holy Grail is located. And the library in Venice is full of some tedious stuff because you will have to walk through the shelves. It's a circular or octagonal building, one of the two. One of the windows leads to the catacombs, or will guide you to the catacombs. There's also a manhole cover located at a little cafe that you can find the catacombs at as well. The catacombs, and for people who are wondering, there is a map to the catacombs. I'm not going to tell you where it is. That's something you have to find for yourselves. Of course, they're not too hard, and it's not too hard to avoid death in that area. You work your way through the catacombs and eventually find the second marker, I believe. Once you find that, you find out your father is being held in a castle on the border of, I believe, Germany and Bavaria, or the Bavaria region of Germany. And so Indy must now infiltrate it and find and rescue his father. This place is also crawling with German soldiers from, World War II. And so you must either fight them all, which I do not recommend unless you're very good at the fighting sequences, or you have to trick them all, which literally involves being either in costume and picking the right answers, or fight, like I said, or picking, being in costume. And you have to remember what costume you wore to get past what guard, because they'll remember. Eventually, of course, as you work your way through all this, going up the levels, you will find your father. You will find also a room which has pictures in it, stolen art, one of which is, quote, a actual painting of the Grail, the Holy Grail. And if by this point you don't know what the Holy Grail is, there is, of course, two schools of belief on what the Holy Grail is, because of translation and all that. That the Holy Grail is believed to be a cup that Jesus drank from at the Last Supper. And you need that image to help you, quote, solve or find the Grail towards the end. Of course, once you rescue Indy's father, you have to sneak out of the castle. But if you get caught, there's still a way to sneak out. It just involves one of the longest, most repetitive actions to get you in the proper place so you can cut your ropes. And I mean, it's like you have to pull chair about 50 some times. I think 55 was the magic number. Once you do that, depending on your actions, you must flee the castle by either going to the airport or heading to Berlin. Believe it or not, depending on, again, on your choices, that may not even be an option. Heading to the airport means a few more options. One, stealing a biplane, or two, sneaking onto a Zeppelin, which you must then figure out how to get off the Zeppelin and, halt things. And when you get off the Zeppelin through another maze-like area where you either fight or avoid German soldiers patrolling, and you get to the biplane, you can use that in some dogfights in the air. The more those planes you down, the farther you get and less checkpoints you have to go through. Of course, if you go to Berlin, you can get a pass to make your way through. Even get the Führer to sign his book, Mein Kampf, which is actually, for some reason, was on reading lists for many years. I've never read it myself. And of course, eventually escape Germany, to which you end up going to where the temple is, where the Holy Grail is supposedly at. Needless to say, the Germans arrive there as well and shoot Henry, giving you no choice but to go get the Grail in order to save his life. Thus, we enter into probably one of the most difficult parts of this game. One involves the first part, you have to kneel at the right time, or at the right spot, which is denoted by one odd pixel. You must then cross a floor full of tiled letters while spelling the name of God, as it's told to you by the book, the Grail Diary. And then comes the test of the faithful, where in the movie, Indy throws sand into a chasm to show where the, quote, invisible path lies. Once there, you meet the last knight of the Crusades, who has been in that temple, confined to that temple area for years, for centuries, because while the Holy Grail does restore life, it cannot leave the temple. And so the last knight is there as a guardian, to which you must choose the Holy Grail. And if you've seen the movie, if you pick the right cup, you feel revitalized, refreshed, life has been sort of restored to you. If you would pour it on a wound, you would be healed. However, if you choose poorly, you'll swiftly age to death. And of course, depending on choices made in the endgame sequence, people either survive or die. And it's a fun game. It is a very fun game. And there are multiple ways to play it, multiple ways to get past certain puzzles. I do not know what the maximum indie quotient is, but to get a full score, you do have to play it multiple times, because it sort of saves your score from game to game. Would I recommend it today? Yes, I would. I would, especially if you love Indiana Jones, if you love the franchise. And this was a very good adaptation for a movie. And it really did help that it was released at the same time the movie came out. That's a rare thing when it comes to video games and movies, is a good adaptation. Well, one way or the other. And some games don't get released right away. They get released after the movie comes out. So, yeah, this was a decent, this was a very good game. And I admit, there's some areas that were a little tricky, and that was part of the charm, I think. And that's all I'm going to say about Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this. Please subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate it. And until next time, this is Rich Kale here on YouTube, Rich Gen X elsewhere. Bye.